Good evening, friends. It's so nice to be able to share with you. This is a World Brotherhood. There's a long tradition at Ananda. It started almost 40 years ago in 1983 when we realized that we needed to have an event around the Christmas season that reached out to people and broadened our hearts. You know, there's a tendency which Yogananda called us four and no more, to be family-oriented. And of course the traditions that are associated with the Christmas season, the holiday time, for families and getting presents and shopping and eating together and celebrating together, and the traditions of Christmas trees and presents wrapped and all of the lore that goes with it, Santa Claus and the Christmas carols, all of that is beautiful, but it is either external, it has a hidden purpose of merchandising, or it has a focus on one's own family. And being a part of this spiritual path, which is so expansive, in fact, it wants to reach out ultimately and touch every atom in the whole created universe. So tremendous sense of expansion, but we wanted to have an event at the beginning of the holiday season that emphasized that. And so the idea of World Brotherhood, because Master Yogananda talked about World Brotherhood so strongly and so often, the idea of a day dedicated to World Brotherhood, where we gave the first gift of the season to expanding the teachings and expanding the inspiration that's possible. You've heard from Jitendra and from Nabha about the various courses that Ananda is doing. The meditation app is just one of many, many projects that we have going on. All of those projects have one purpose in mind, and that's to bring the light of God, the love of God, the joy of God, more strongly, more palpably, and more readily to people so that they can receive it and feel it in maybe for the first time in their lives. If that's true, then we want to be sure that people have a pathway to learn the techniques. If they have learned the techniques, we want to be sure that they have friends and a community that will support them in their practice of the techniques. And if they have been practicing the techniques and receiving support all along, then their next step, and this is probably true for all of you, is not to only be a receiver, but also to be a giver. And in that spirit, World Brotherhood Day is very, very important for all of us, because it is perhaps of the one day of the year that's most symbolic of I am going to put my energy in and join those of my Guru Bhais, those of Ananda around the world in helping spread this light. So traditionally what we have suggested for people, you can take this suggestion or not as you will, but is that they give one day's wages at this time so that there is a sense of what their labor has been able to produce, what that has drawn, they now give back. It's a kind of a way of tithing. But the idea of World Brotherhood is far, far beyond the monetary gift. You know, this world right now is in a sad state. And it isn't just the virus, it isn't just COVID. It has been experiencing its own crisis of illness now for some time. It's a crisis of illness brought on by too much thinking of oneself, too much ignoring the needs of other people, ignoring the needs of the environment, ignoring the needs to support and to give kindness. And so Yogananda brought a whole pathway to help knit this world together. But we as individuals, and as for most of us watching this, as followers of Yogananda, we need to not just be inspired by what he did, but we need to join our energies with his effort, to be part of his mission, to be a foot soldier in the army of light that he had come to earth in order to bring. And so this time of World Brotherhood, I think especially this year, when there are so many forces around that are working to create separation, working to create division, this year, more than any that I can remember, and as I said, we've been doing these days annually for almost 40 years. But more than any year that I can remember, the need for world brotherhood, the need to take action, the need to be part of a warrior of light is stronger this year than it ever has been. But that time of reaching out, as I say, the monetary gift, while important, because a ministry cannot run without having funds to support it. But while that monetary gift is important, even more important is for all of us to join our energies together, to join our love together, to join our compassion, our altruism, our desire to serve God and gurus, but to serve humanity. And this is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity in order to do that. So I wish you a very deep and sacred World Brotherhood Day, a holy season that is filled with God's light and joy and expansion. And I thank you for all of the gifts that you have given us over so many years that has allowed Ananda to start from a little seed and really blossom and now cover the entire earth globally with little, as Master said, the little lights of Kriya bonds that are lighting up the entire world. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Kriya bond. The lights of devotees, those who are filled, their hearts are filled with God's light, become a light to the others and a light to the world. God bless you all.
Hello, everyone. My good friend Mai asked me to speak on a topic that I could go on for a long time, but I'll be brief. She asked me to share with you inspiring stories about Ananda's work throughout the world. As Jyotish was saying, our first World Brotherhood Day was in San Francisco in 1983, and the funds that came in were dedicated to helping us to complete the Expanding Light retreat facility. And so from that beginning, that was the seed that was planted of, it was pretty much all of Ananda that existed. We had centers elsewhere, but it was not a global work as yet. In 1983, Jyotish and I were not present at that first World Brotherhood Day because we were in Assisi, or in Italy, helping to get the work launched there. And now, these many years later, we have a remarkable international community in Assisi with people from about 10 different nations. Every event that we do is translated into 3 or 4 or 5 different languages, either with a small group with their own translator or with headphones and so forth. But I wanted to tell you a remarkable story that most of you probably don't know. When we dedicated the beautiful Temple of Light in Assisi, I think that was about 25 years ago, Jyotish and I were present then. And this beautiful Temple of Light at Ananda Village and in Seattle as well are reflecting of that building's design. But at the dedication of the Assisi Temple, one of the speakers was a very fine, inspiring man. He was he was a priest, a Catholic priest. And if you ever saw the movie The Assisi Underground, during World War II, he was the man who organized hiding Jews in monasteries and convents so that the Nazis wouldn't take them away to concentration camps, and he facilitated them getting out of Europe. He saved thousands of lives. Well, he spoke at the dedication of our Temple of Light in Assisi, and he told a story that was really thrilling to us. He said during those dark days of the Second World War, he would look up at the hills above Assisi. He was in the city itself. And in those hills above Assisi, that's where Ananda's community exists and the temple exists. He said he would look up there and he would see lights shining there. And he knew that someday spiritual souls would come live there and create communities of light. And he said, and we all felt so humbled when he said this, he said, "You are those lights that I saw in my vision all those years ago, and you came to bring light into the world and to usher into a new era out of darkness." And this was very, very, very moving and touching. And in fact, that's what has been happening in Assisi. We have been a light unto Europe. For people come from Russia, from Germany, from England, all over Spain, all over Europe. And our teachers have in the past gone and returned their visits. This year we've shifted it all online and very effectively. And we're serving those same people. But then the work moved beyond Europe. And in 2003, Swami felt the call to start master's work in India. And Jyotish and I, we were always sort of the frontline soldiers, part of the team. We went in those early days to help get things started too. And first it was always remarkable doing things with Swamiji, because we never knew what we were doing. He didn't know what he was doing, I think, with his mental process, but he knew what he was doing in a flow of energy from Master. And we started a little ashram. He began giving satsangs every day, and little by little, people came. More and more people came. And now we look at what's going on in in India, and it's remarkable, the souls that are being reached. And one beautiful project, you've heard us speak of this before, is the work that we're doing with what we call the Paramahansa Yogananda Charitable Trust in Vrindavan. And this is for homeless widows. In India, there unfortunately is the practice if a woman's husband dies, sometimes the family just throws her out on the street. And they make their way by the thousands and tens of thousands to Vrindavan, and they live on the streets and they beg. And so Ananda was inspired, some of our members, to start care homes for these widows who had been living literally on the streets in their old age, at the time of life where their family should have cared for them. And we are now I think we have, the last number I heard was 5 different care homes, each housing about 30 these widows, and so widow mothers we call them. But the beautiful thing, in and of itself, it's beautiful. One woman said so beautifully, she said, their winter celebration is called Diwali, and it means the return of light, celebrating when Lord Rama returned back to his kingdom. But this woman, this widow mother, elderly woman said, she said, for 20 years I was alone, hungry on the street at Diwali time. This is the first time in 20 years that I have a home, I have warmth, I have food, I have companionship. She said, God has come to you. God has come through you to serve all of us. And one of the traditions for Diwali is to have these little, they're called diyas, little clay candles, a little clay pot with a candle in them, and sometimes they're decorated. But the thing I want to mention is that we are, unlike most charitable organizations which just give and the people receive it, we are training our people to give to others. So the widow mothers painted 10,000 little diyas, little lights, the little clay pots, they painted them, and they gave them out throughout the city of Vrindavan to bring light into people's homes. This is the spirit and of what Ananda is doing globally. And then one of the things that we've just started this year, because English is the common language, but there are regional languages, dozens of them, that people are more comfortable speaking in. So we've been teaching only in English since 2003 when we started, but now we're beginning to teach in regional languages. And we have a wonderful Hindi home study course that has thousands of students in it. And for the first time, I think I don't know, I can't put a date on it, but I have never before heard that Kriya Yoga initiations are being given in regional languages. So we had our first Kriya Yoga initiation in Hindi led by Brahmacharya Aditya. We had one, and there were about 30 people there, new Hindi-speaking Kriyabans. And then we had one in another regional language, Marathi, and that was given by Acharya Amit. And there were about 45 people. First time in who knows how long that these Kriya initiations are being given in regional languages. So I just shared these few little stories. I could tell many more. I'll tell one more just to show the spirit. A friend of ours, the leader of our West Delhi meditation group, told us this beautiful story, again exemplifying world brotherhood, that when the COVID hit in India, in the lockdown, many people lost their jobs. And there isn't the kind of backup financial plan that we have in America with stimulus checks and so forth. And so people were just really, in very dire straits. So in the West Delhi group, there were 7 people who lost their jobs and had no income. And so the other members of the group, there were about 20 of them, they said, don't worry. We are all brothers and sisters in God. And they gathered the money, and for several months, they supported those 7 people. And then one by one, their jobs began opening up, or they got a different job. But it's this spirit of Ananda, the spirit of Master, the spirit of world brotherhood that doesn't say, what can I get? But what can I give? What can I give to make someone else's life better? What can I give to bring inspiration to someone else? This is the spirit of Ananda that Master gave to Swami and Swami gave to us. And we in turn are passing it on to the widows in Vrindavan, to the Hindi-speaking teachers in India, to our teachers in Europe who are reaching people in their native languages. So it's one of my favorite scenes in a movie is from the movie Gandhi, where he's starting his march to the sea. And this is to protest the British salt tax, where they were being charged exorbitant prices for salt. And so it's done so well. It starts off just with Gandhi, and the camera is panning in on just Gandhi, focusing in on 2 or 3 of his followers. And then it pans back, and there's thousands, and back, hundreds, back, thousands. And this is what's happening with Ananda. Join us. Support this movement of World Brotherhood. And it is reaching the life of thousands, and they in turn will reach the lives of thousands more. This is the spirit of sharing the light, planting that light in another person's heart, and them going out and sharing it and planting it in the hearts of others. So we're so glad that you can be a part of this movement and that you can share your energy, your love, and your support with this great divine mission that Master brought to the world. We'll close this part of the program before we have our breakout groups with a visualization for World Brotherhood. So I invite you to close your eyes now, sit upright, and visualize at your heart a golden orb of light and energy. And feel that light and energy moving outward, expanding, filling your whole body, your brain, your thoughts, moving outward through your fingers. That light and love and energy of World Brotherhood moving outwards. And feel from your fingers, you can even extend your arms and feel rays of light and love, of connection, moving out from your hands. And visualize them touching another person's hands, perhaps a stranger, but someone too who is trying to share love and light and brotherhood on your left and on your right, and on their left and on their right. Feel a flow of energy coming from God into the hearts of people everywhere. And visualize us all joined together in a vast circle of light, a circle of joy, a circle of love, circumventing the whole planet. Think of every nationality, every race, every religion, every national costume, a beautiful garden of souls joined together, the energy flowing outward, surrounding the globe, and then penetrating, reaching the hearts of people everywhere, awakening them from dark dreams of fear and anger and hatred, awakening them into the light of strength and courage, of love, of unity and world brotherhood. See the world surrounded in that light. So beautiful. Just as God meant the world and meant us to live as brothers and sisters under one Father, Mother, God. So let's rub our hands together and chant Om and send out these blessings, this light, this love, this world brotherhood, and reaching the hearts of people everywhere. Om. Peace. Thank you for being with us today.